Trace might not even have that many.
No, Trace did not have that many. It's definitely wrong. Yeah.
It's a crazy number. It's loading up here.
He's going to be loved on this campus.
We should be ready to go here. I think our live stream is up and running. Let's make sure all systems are go. I think we are set. All right, here's the deal, folks. We were going to do a normal Tuesday night podcast episode anyway. We were going to talk about Indiana against Northern Illinois, and we were going to preview St. John's, and we'll still do that. And then Jevin texted me. Jevin says, "Hey, Nathan, Gabe Cupps just committed." Well, guess what we're going to talk about then? We're going to talk about Gabe Cupps' commitment in the class of 2023, the Indiana Hoosiers, moving on to 2-0 and previewing this big matchup against St. John's in the Gavitt games on Wednesday night, and so much more here on episode 226 of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. It is November 16th, 2021, and I am joined by my normal co-host, Matt Lukens. Also with us tonight is Indiana HQ Boots on the Ground contributor, Jevin McCoskey. He was at Assembly Hall for Northern Illinois on Friday night. He was at Memorial Stadium for IU Rutgers on Saturday. Jevin, let's talk about the Gabe Cupps commitment first. This is a 6'2", 165 point guard out of Centerville High School in Dayton, Ohio. What does this commitment mean? Talk to us a little bit about Gabe Cupps. Give Hoosier Nation some background, because I know they're curious to hear about IU's newest addition.
Well, what does it say about Mike Woodson and staff knowing that they just recruited someone out of Ohio, out of the state of Ohio, away from Ohio State, who was in Cupps' top three along with
Ohio
Stanford
State
and IU?
In the final three.
Yeah, but when looking at Cupps, like you mentioned, he's a 6'2" guard who has in the gym range. I've watched him since he was probably 14 years old when he played with Bronny James, LeBron's son, and he's always been able to shoot. There was a viral video of him, years ago where him and LeBron went back and forth before a pregame or halftime of one of their games. The kid can shoot. He's always been able to shoot, and he always will be able to shoot. And what has IU been missing for the last, seems like 5 years at this point, is that prolific shooter. And he definitely has the ability to be that for IU, but that's 2 years away. Like we said before the podcast started, he is only a junior, so he's got time to grow even more in his game, become bigger, faster, stronger. He is only, like you said, like 160, soaking wet. That's not very big, especially in the Big Ten. He's gonna have to put on more muscle. Probably won't grow a ton more, but when you can shoot, we've seen it in the Big Ten, we've seen it across the country. When you can shoot, you can get on any basketball court.
By the way, Centerville High School, grain of salt here, taking this straight off of Wikipedia, but the Replogle football brothers, Adam Replogle, who's a defensive tackle at Indiana, they all come from Centerville High School. How about Kirk Herbstreit, the big ESPN football commentator, as well as AJ Hawk and Mike Nugent, a couple of former Buckeyes. It is true. Cupps committed to Indiana over Stanford and Ohio State. Matt, I know you love the recruiting game. Talk to us about Cupps. He's somebody who really does project to be the point guard of the future for Indiana maybe not when he steps on campus in fall 2023, but definitely a year or two into his IU career.
I mean, absolutely. It's somebody that everybody in the Big Ten wanted for the most part. I mean, when you look at the people that offered him, you look at Michigan, Ohio State, IU. That's basically the top of the Big Ten when it comes to offers outside of Michigan State. You can't ask for more. He's, more centralized to the Midwest. But again, like Jevin said, he's a bit of a national prospect thanks to the fact that he's got 360,000 followers on Instagram, thanks to Bronny James, right, and LeBron. So he's somebody that's a bit more high profile of the commit. Now, if you look at him and his rankings from the ranking standpoint, he's 131 nationally in the 24/7 composite, which is 3 stars. He's 88 in the 24/7 rankings, 4-star. I assume as he grows up, because again, he's still a sophomore in high school. I remember when I was a sophomore in high school, I was still growing. And obviously he's going to get a little bit bigger because he's at 165 pounds. He will move on up the recruiting boards, because right now he's a bit of a twig, and that's fine. As far as what he brings to the team, I know Jevin said he's a lights out shooter. That's true. He has the ability to be probably the best shooter on this team when he gets on the court. But he is also a point guard at heart. He's a really good passer of the ball, has really good vision, can play off the ball as well. And that's really important, Nathan, with the people that we're bringing in around him, right? Remember, we have Jalen Hood-Schifino, 5-star recruit, coming in next class. We might still have Christian Lanier at this time. Who knows? CJ Gunn is another guard that's coming in next year. And then with his class, we have Ja'Kai Newton, who's a combo guard, can be on the ball himself. So the ability to play off the ball is really important for somebody like him. So he really fits in well with the pieces that are being put around him. You can kind of see what Mike Woodson is trying to do. Somebody like Xavier Johnson, where he's a ball dominant point guard, is going to be a thing of the past in this program. As the years move on, we're going to look at people who can share the ball, multiple ball handlers on the floor at the time, and really switchable guys. Even Gabe is 6'2", and like Jevin said, 160 pounds wet, right? But as he grows up, he's going to be a guy 6'2", being your shortest guard on the floor is pretty switchable in a lot of situations. Again, we talked about how high I am on Ja'Kai Newton and his, absurd length that he brings to the team. These guys are all going to be able to play, that switching defense that we've seen so far at IU. That's been suffocating opponents recently.
Yeah, and I go back and think about some of the comments we've made on podcast episodes before. You're not going to fill your roster up with all 5-star recruits. Here's right. Somebody in Cupps who's right on that 3-star, 4-star fringe. The 24/7 sports people, as he talked about, Matt, have him 4-star, but in the composite rankings, he's right on the fringe. I wanted to mention that Cupps has already been mentioned on LeBron James' Instagram story, congratulating Cupps for his recruitment. Not Bronny James's Instagram story. I haven't checked. Maybe it's on Bronny's also. But King James has already said, congrats, nephew, to Gabe Cupps as he committed to Indiana. Jevin, keep it rolling, man. Indiana gets Gabe Cupps here, a 2023 recruit. For all of you listening, make sure you throw in comments in the live chat, any questions that you may have. We're also going to talk about the Northern Illinois game. We're going to talk about Indiana St. John's coming up on Wednesday night. What else do you have on Cupps? He's somebody I know IU fans have already shown a lot of excitement about.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, like we said, he's only a sophomore in high school, so it's kind of unfair to critique his game at this point. But the one question that people are going to have about him whenever he does become a freshman on campus is that defensive side of the ball. What's he going to be able to bring on the defensive end? We all know that obviously he can shoot the ball, and with the other players. And Matt, this is what made me think about it. You touched on Ja'Kai Newton's length. Cupps being only 6'2", I know 6'2" is not short by any means, but Ja'Kai Newton's wingspan, Jalen Hood-Schifino's wingspan, they're going to be able to bring that to the defensive end. We don't know if Cupps is going to be able to do that, so that's something that he's definitely going to have to work on. And how cool is it that LeBron James did? I just checked Bronny's Instagram, and he has not yet, but it definitely will come. It definitely will.
By the way, I lied. He's a junior in high school, I think.
Yeah.
He's 21, 22, 23. Yeah. It's fine. He's not going to be on campus for a bit.
He still has time to improve, for sure.
Yeah. It's 2 years basically before 2 calendar years here before Cupps plays a game for Indiana University.
It's so weird because he's my brother's age, and he just committed to Indiana University, and it's so weird.
I always like Adam Finkelstein's comments. He's a recruiting analyst for ESPN. He said, simply put, that Cupps is a highly skilled and super smart guard who didn't have a Division I offer until June. You can follow Gabe Cupps on Twitter at Cupps, C-U-P-P-S, Gabe, G-A-B-E. His commitment message is simply this: wow, I'm so grateful to all the people who have been a part of this journey. Thank you to everyone who has gotten me to where I am. Thank you to Coach Woodson and his staff for believing in me and giving me the opportunity to be a part of Indiana basketball. From hustle, the blue chips, Indy Heat, the leftovers, Midwest to the Elks, hard work has never let me down. Excited to be part of Hoosier Nation. Let's go Hoosiers. So that was Cupps' commitment post. Indiana, speaking of the staff, guys, how about this? Of all the players who have committed to this coaching staff that are part of the class of 2022 or 2023, it's all guards, with the exception of Caleb Banks, who classifies as sort of profiles as a wing player. It is all guards. It's Jalen Hood-Schifino. It's Gabe Cupps. It's Ja'Kai Newton. It's CJ Gunn, who reaffirmed his commitment to Indiana for the 2022-23 season. I'm sure I might be missing one or two, but guys, Matt, like, this focus on guard play is a clear indication that basketball sage Mike Woodson sees that part of the game as a massive part for Indiana to return to where it wants to go, the Elite Eight, Final Four, et cetera. Don't you see that?
I mean, it's been pretty obvious to any watching IU fan in the last couple of years that the guard play has sucked. Like, we've had Juwan Morgan followed by Trace Jackson Davis. We still can't make the tournament. That's not their fault. It's mostly the guards' fault, right? Shooting is almost synonymous with good guard play. And we haven't had either. So it's been a rough patch for us. Again, these guys are, Gabe's a high school junior, right? So I don't want to come in saying he's the savior of the program. I know I said Ja'Kai Newton was going to win an NBA championship. That's a lot. That's a huge prediction. That's a lot of weight to put on somebody's shoulders, right? He hasn't even played a single game on campus, let alone is he in a mock draft, right? But these kids have a lot of promise. Gabe, especially, as he grows up and gets bigger, is going to show people why he was challenging LeBron James to a shooting contest when he was like 14.
I know Mike Woodson likes that. I don't know what you want to call it, sort of confidence in his players.
Bravado.
He doesn't want to take laid back players and really wrench that out of them. He says, look, come in with a chip on your shoulder, come in with a little bit of arrogance. We can, modify it as you come along here at Indiana. But I know that's one thing he's always seen as a positive. And Tamar Bates, for example, who's played a couple of games here at Indiana. Jevin, I know it's impossible to do this exercise, but one thing I always like when we talk about commitments on this podcast is none of this is apples to apples, but is there a current or former collegiate or professional basketball player that you watch Gabe Cupps and you say, you know what? He reminds me of this guy. Is there anyone that, I know you watch a ton of basketball, is there anyone that comes to mind when you watch Gabe Cupps as a rough ballpark player comparison?
Yeah, so Cupps' greatest ability that we've talked about is his ability to shoot. And when I think about that, there in the collegiate level, there are a few people that come to mind, especially within the Big Ten. First, just because obviously we watched a lot of Big Ten basketball here at Indiana HQ. And the name that comes to mind first is Jordan Bohannon. Now, again, these are not the same player by any means, but they are both around the same height, can both shoot in the gym range, and like that is their best ability. Both have the ability to play off the ball, but can also both handle the ball and make the right decisions and have a high basketball IQ. So not in any means are they the same player whatsoever, but they do have similar tendencies and both have the ability to shoot from anywhere in the gym.
Yeah, that would be a win for Mike Woodson. I know Jordan Bohannon is someone Indiana fans hate to see whenever the Hoosiers take on Iowa. Matt, how about you? You look across college game, the NBA. We're not saying, as you say, we're not saying Gabe Cupps is going to win an NBA title, but as you look at the basketball atmosphere environment, who does Gabe Cupps remind you of?
Yeah, I got a bit of a throwback one. I know I was throwing out some names earlier, and I was gonna throw out somebody like Tyler Hero for this, but I think I'm gonna go with a former Ohio point guard, and Aaron Kraft. I think he's Aaron Kraft with a jump shot.
Okay.
And again, that was Aaron Kraft's one weakness, but if this kid can put on some weight, he's got the athleticism to actually guard people at a high level, be a bit of a demon on the defensive end. And he can shoot the ball, and he's very crafty in the lane, like Aaron Kraft was as well. So, yeah.
Why not? I mean, if Indiana, look, if Gabe Cupps is close to the defender that Aaron Kraft was, Indiana's going to take that. To have somebody that dangerous in the backcourt, limiting probably the opposing team's best player, you'll take that. The one Hoosier that I think about, and Jevin and Matt and I were talking about this before we started, the one Hoosier that I think flipping back over the years, who's Gabe Cupps remind you of? Point guards, 6'2", whatever. Jordan Hulls wasn't 6'2", but he fits the profile of what I see out of Gabe Cupps. Somebody who is, a kind of an unheralded recruit, somebody who has that shooting ability, is somebody who plays in a cerebral way. I see some similarities here between Jordan Hulls and Gabe Cupps. And a side note, I will say, when Jordan Hulls was taking shoot around before games, seeing him pour in 3 after 3 was pretty impressive. If Gabe Cupps can emulate that type of pregame shooting routine, even come close to it, you're going to feel pretty good about Gabe Cupps' career at Indiana. So that pretty much summarizes our thoughts as far as Gabe Cupps is concerned. He joins Ja'Kai Newton in Indiana's class of 2023. It's got 2 players in it. There's still 2 years to go before the first game is played for either of these 2 guys. So we'll keep an eye out if there's any news as far as either of these 2 players are concerned. But Gabe Cupps joins Indiana's class of 2023. Potentially loaded backcourt in a couple years. You talked about a lot of guards committing to IU, but there is a scenario that exists where it's Christian Lander, Jalen Hood-Schifino, CJ Gunn, Gabe Cupps, and Ja'Kai Newton all fighting for minutes in the backcourt. We'll see how all of that plays out when 2 years go by. So that puts a wrap on our Gabe Cupps conversation. I'm sure we're going to talk about him a lot more on this podcast over the next few years, but let's live in the present for now. Before we get to Indiana's 2-0 start, we'll talk about who won the week this past week in IU sports, and there are a lot of choices this week. How about the IU men's soccer team gaining one of those top 16 seeds to host in the round of 32 in the IU men's soccer tournament? But even though the men's soccer team got that NCAA tournament bid, there's no doubt that the team that won the week this past week is the IU women's basketball team, who won 88-67 over number 13 Kentucky on Sunday evening on ESPN. Mackenzie Holmes won Big Ten Player of the Week after her 29-point career-high performance against the Wildcats. And IU has now leapfrogged all the way up to number 4 in the AP Top 25, easily the highest ranking they've achieved in program history, topping the number 8 that they were just this past week. So Terry Morin keeps raising the bar, keeps setting higher heights for this program. They are playing right now against Norfolk State. It would be a little embarrassing for this podcast if they lost, but I don't think that's going to happen. If you would like to subscribe to our podcast for free, all you have to do is search for the Hoosier Sound wherever you listen to podcasts. Stay up to date with all of our information by following us on Twitter at Indiana HQ and at the Hoosier Sound. If you enjoy our show, leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links. Your support really helps us grow this podcast and reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. Well, on Friday night, Indiana defended home court and looked a whole lot more convincing than they did in their first game of the season. The Hoosiers knocked off Northern Illinois 85-49 in front of a packed house in Assembly Hall. Trace Jackson Davis led the way with a career-high 7 blocks. He had 19 points, brought down 7 rebounds as well. Race Thompson had a double-double. Now, the biggest issue in this game was the fact that the BTN Plus stream was a point of concern and frustration for all of you who were trying to tune in. You had forked over your hard-earned bucks just to watch the Hoosiers play on Friday night, and the angles and the quality, all that is a little frustrating. So the reason Jevin's on the podcast tonight is because he was there in person. And he was there in person for Eastern Michigan. And Jevin, I'm just going to hand it off to you here like a Xavier Johnson assist. Talk to us about what Indiana did better in game 2 versus game 1. What stood out to you from a first-person standpoint in the gym at Assembly Hall?
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to back up the BTM Plus production crew a little bit because it is student ran, and I'm
It
still a
is.
student.
It's
I
true.
am
It's
still
true.
a student here at IU, and there's a reason that they get that game instead of a game like St. John's. But I see both sides for sure. But you mentioned they defended home court, and you could not have said a better word other than defend, because they defended at one of the highest levels that I've ever seen. And I'm a senior here now at IU, and I know it's not the highest level of competition that they're playing, but everything was affected at the rim. Even when Trace didn't get a block, you could see that Northern Illinois didn't have any confidence whatsoever attacking the rim. They were settling for jump shots late into the shot clock. You saw the guard play when IU is able to play Rob Finney and Xavier Johnson at the same time. You are creating hell for the other opposing point guards and shooting guards. Those are two of the best on-ball defenders I've ever seen play basketball. Again, from the state of Indiana, I haven't gotten to see everybody play basketball. I know that, but they are really good at what they do on the defensive end. And then what Trace Jackson Davis in the presser for the Eastern Michigan game mentioned that, it wasn't a full 40 minutes of basketball on the defensive end. They played a really solid 20 minutes in the first half, and Mike Woodson said 28 minutes. It is whatever. But when you got to the second game, they played a full 40 minutes of high defensive basketball. And in the press game conference, Trey Galloway touched on it. He said it was a big emphasis throughout the entire week, wanting to be able to finish the game. Trace mentioned, not letting your foot off the gas and running straight through the finish line instead of, slowing down once you get to it. And that's exactly what they did. I think at the peak of the stat, they were holding Northern Illinois to 0.6 points per possession, which is unheard of.
Especially nowadays, more offense, more fluency and offense.
Yeah, exactly. And coming off the game where Northern Illinois beat Washington the way that they did by penetrating and kicking out and knocking down threes, it was very impressive to see IU run Northern Illinois off of the wing and try to make them, penetrate towards the basket and just watch Trace Jackson Davis swallow up everything that was attempted at the rim. It was great. And then obviously the offense did what the offense does. We're seeing a new brand of basketball here at Indiana, and I don't see that changing anytime soon with the level of competition raising, and it's definitely something that's exciting to see.
Matt, on your end, I know you watched the game, and I know you took it in as a fan like all of us. What stood out to you? What did you like seeing? Obviously, Indiana just so much more impressive and comprehensive in their win over MAC opponent number 2. Jevin, you did say Northern Illinois went to Seattle, beat Washington. Northern Illinois, I should say Washington is not projected to do all that well in the Pac-12 this year, but still a very impressive win for Northern as a 20-point underdog. So, Matt, what stood out to you? What did you like? Indiana moved on to 2-0.
Shooting was much better in this game.
Yeah.
Much, much better. Again, you're not going to get a lot of games where Parker Stewart goes 0 of 4 and Miller Kopp goes 0 of 1. Those two combined to go 0 of 5, and we still hit another 8 3-pointers. But by the way, 8 different people hitting them.
Yes. Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah. Yes. We've talked about the floor spacing even better. Race Thompson going 1 of 2 in this game. Humongous. Finally hit one. They finally have to respect him hitting that shot. Trace even took one. I don't remember when he did, but apparently he did. I don't remember seeing it, but it's on the stat sheet, so it's not lying to me. Xavier Johnson, his 1 3-pointer. By the way, he looked super confident. His 1 3-pointer that he took, he was so comfortable. Jordan Geronimo might have the best shooting form on the team. Seriously, I love the way the ball comes out of his hands. If he can just sit in the corner, shoot 3-pointers, and then backdoor alley-oops, that's all we really need from him because his defense speaks for itself. Lander, 1 of 3. I thought 2 of his 3-pointers were really good shots. I thought 1 of them was a terrible shot. That's fine. He's in there late in the game trying to get some shots up. Tamar Bates, all 3 shots were great. He hit 1. That's fine. Anthony Leal hit a 3. What do we expect from him? Trey Galloway, who I talked about, if he could hit a 3-pointer, would be looking really good. Hit a 3, and then Rob Finney hit 1 that we didn't see go in because the Big Ten broadcast decided to zoom in on Rob instead of the showing us that the basket went in. But there was enough celebration to tell that it went in. But look, the shooting was better. 76% on free throws. I'll take it, especially with Trace going 7 of 11. Like, honestly, that's about what He should shoot for the season around 65%. That's fine. And then 7 blocks, like shooting, and then the post defense. I know our boy Ant Wright talked about us last year playing big, even though we were small. We played hella big. We played super big in this game. We had 7 blocks from Trace. You had Race had a block himself, and was just 10 rebounds. Like our team plays big for a small team, and it was working out against somebody like Northern Illinois. We'll see how it works out against St. John's.
Right. It only got bigger when Michael Durr returned as well.
That's true.
Yeah. That was exactly going to be my point. Michael Durr, what a pleasant surprise. I mean, I know there was some physical limitations that prevented him from playing in the Bahamas, prevented him from playing against Eastern Michigan. Even in his, I think it was 10 minutes of play on Friday night, I really liked what I saw. No one's expecting him to be a Hall of Famer. He came in, he looked alert. He looked like he knew what his function was in the offense. I loved his dunk. Really finished that play with authority. The athleticism stood out to me, and he graded out really well as far as our lineup analysis was concerned. One that we published over on IndianaHQ.com. Indiana's got a little bit of a bench mob going. The lineup of the 5 key bench guys, Finney, I shouldn't spitball this, Finney, Bates, Galloway, Geronimo, and Durr graded out really well in the first half when the game was still in the balance. So perhaps that's something you can expect to see Indiana put together for the rest of the season. The starting lineup is great themselves, and so everyone's doing their job. Of course, that's the expectation given Indiana's pretty significant advantages over the MAC opponents that they faced so far. The last thing on the Northern game, I mentioned on last week's podcast that in order to measure a team's success at defending the 3, it's not the percentage the other team makes, it's the percentage the other team takes. And Northern Illinois took half their shots from 3 against Washington because Washington was not defending the perimeter well. On Friday night against the Hoosiers, Northern Illinois took 46 shots, only 11 were from deep. They didn't have much room out on the perimeter to take those 3-pointers. And as Indiana goes into a matchup against St. John's, for example, a team that loves to play fast and loves to take the 3, that could be an area of hope for the Hoosiers, one they feel like they might have the upper hand. So the Hoosiers move on to 2-0. They sit in the top 40 in KenPom. These 2 games really didn't move the needle unless IU would have lost. IU didn't. A lot of teams have blown games against very beatable teams, and the Hoosiers didn't do that. So mission accomplished through 2 games, and IU clearly trying to improve as things go on. Guys, let's dive into this matchup. Indiana faces St. John's Wednesday night, 9 Eastern tip on Fox Sports 1. Indiana is a 6.5-point favorite. The over-under is 148.5. Generally speaking, St. John's is an offensively focused team coached by Mike Anderson, and they want to play up and down. They love tempo. They love to put the opposing team on their back foot, and they love to take threes. Their star player is Julian Champagny, and so far, St. John's has hit over 40% of the threes that they've taken, and they love to take those threes as well. However, much like Indiana, their first 2 opponents have just been vastly overmatched. So it's really the first true test for both the Hoosiers and for the Red Storm. Matt, I'm going to start with you. Talk to me about this matchup. Are you surprised at Indiana being a 6.5-point favorite in this one? Talk to me about IU taking on this Big East team. By the way, the Big Ten off to a rough start in the Gavitt games.
That's true. We are off to a rough start. Thank you, Wisconsin.
And Illinois.
And Illinois. Yeah.
Ugh.
It's a bit rough, but we shall see. I think we'll turn it around. Again, that was an Illinois team that lost a very close game with their point guard Curbelo playing like absolute, not what like not even close to the level that Illinois expects him to be playing at. And they also didn't have Kofi because he was suspended. They're going to be fine.
Still,
by Big Ten play, they'll be one of the teams. They'll be still not great.
Hot take? I don't think so. But this is an Illinois podcast, so go ahead.
I mean, I would agree
I don't
with
think
you.
so.
I think
I don't think Illinois is going to be fine.
overhyped. I think they've been overhyped for sure. But that being said, Kofi Coburn fixes a lot of problems for that team.
Yeah.
This team, the St. John's team, look, they can get up and down the floor. They play really, really fast. And Julian Champagny, it looks like Champagne. It's Champagny.
No.
It's not Champagne. It's Champagny. Is a star. Look, 6'8" guard, shoots 46% from three, averages 21 points per game, averages 4 rebounds per game, and a steal and a half per game. Pretty good, if you ask me. Again, he's not going to really create anything for any other guys. I don't think he doesn't have an assist in the season. I don't think, but he is a shot taker and a shot maker. He's the kind of guy that you want on your team. If this is a close game, the ball is going to be in his hands. So it's going to be up to somebody like a Miller Kopp, who we've seen take a lot of the top guys at 6'7", 6'8", and guard him at an extremely high level. If we're going to have a chance to win this game, I am, like you said, you brought up the 6.5 line. As a sports bettor myself, very surprised about that. I think the only way and only conceivable way I can think that line is a thing is you've been looking at teams that have been going away from home, have had struggled with an away atmosphere, and this is going to be an away atmosphere. First big home game back since COVID at Assembly Hall. Assembly Hall should be rocking, I'm sure. Trace was tweeting out he wants a full crowd. I think, home teams, you want to give them like a 5-6 point bubble. If they have a really good home crowd, it kind of gives you 5 or 6 extra points, maybe a possession or two where they kind of rush things. And so I think that's what Vegas is looking at into this game. And so if you take that into example, we're only 6.5 points favorites. This is about dead even skill wise. Again, we each have one super good player and a really good second player. We're going to talk about Posh Alexander and Tariq Coburn in a minute for St. John's, but for us, it's Xavier Johnson and the rest of the crew. But the real matchup is who's going to have the better game. Is it going to be Julian Champagny or is it going to be Trace? And I would put my money on Trace because he's been consistent and it's Assembly Hall and he's going to be comfortable and they're going to be fired up. But we'll have to see tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating development to see who among Indiana starters guards Julian Champagny. Could it be Miller Kopp? Could it be Race Thompson? Could it be Parker Stewart? Again, Champagny is a unique player with a unique skill set, somebody who's 6'8", plays guard, and attempts 7.5 threes per game through 2 games. Definite NBA prospect as far as Champagny's concerned. Posh Alexander, a dangerous point guard. It's really a big 1-2 punch there. Jevin, what else stands out to you about this matchup? Indiana is favored. They're going to have the home crowd behind them. Are you concerned about St. John's pace giving Indiana's problems?
So I'm not necessarily on the offensive end. Look, listen, the basketball today, everybody wants to run. Fast break points everybody wants to be able to lead their conference in fast break points. That's just how basketball is played. It's fast break points and 3-point shots, which is exactly what St. John's does. But I'm going to look into my crystal ball really quick and tell you 2 things that I expect to see out of this game. First is I think Parker Stewart's going to be the one to guard Champagny. I think Kopp is just a little too slow at moving his feet, and I think Champagny could really just take advantage of that and get his points at the bucket. I know he takes almost 8 threes a game. He'll get his threes off, of course, but I think we see Parker Stewart start off on him at least. But the other thing I want to say about my crystal ball is I think Miller Kopp is going to have his better game of the year. Like, I think he's going to have one of the best games of the year. I saw something on Twitter. The way St. John's defends the pick and roll, they totally leave the corner wide open, and I think that's where you're going to see Parker Stewart and Miller Kopp really start to catch fire. And Miller Kopp needs that confidence booster of a game, and I think this has a chance to be that game. But looking at one of the things that Mike Woodson has really harped on this entire week is how the guards for IU will handle the pressure that St. John's likes to give on the defensive end, especially full court pressing. Mike Woodson said, if they're going to do it, you got to make them pay for it. And hopefully that is what IU does. They haven't really been tested with that yet this year. And this, like I said, will be their first test. So it's something that Rob Finney has not he's had to deal with it before. Same thing with Xavier Johnson at Pitt. So it'll be interesting to see how those two, Tamar Bates, Parker Stewart, Miller Kopp, how they all handle that tomorrow.
Absolutely. Yeah, it will be really interesting to see that matchup. By the way, in the preseason Big East poll, St. John's came in fourth. Villanova is expected to win the conference. St. John's slotted in fourth in the Big East. If you finish fourth in the Big East, you're going to make the NCAA tournament, something St. John's did not do last season. So that's the goal. Much like for Indiana, that's the goal for the Red Storm this upcoming year. Before I tell you the aspect of the game that I'm looking forward to the most, let's bring out our social media shout out for this week's podcast episode. And I know while life for Indiana football is rough, there was no bigger social media moment than seeing all the shirtless guys in the corner of Memorial Stadium up in section 19. Every college football account that has any sort of pull on Twitter mentioned it. It was crazy. It was ridiculous. It was a bit of comic relief in what's been a horrifying season. Jevin, was there anything that you wanted to mention about this episode as someone who was there?
It was just like we were sitting in the press box and we see like a group of like three guys go over to section 19 and just start taking their shirts off and waving them around. Everyone's like, oh, that's hilarious. When you take a picture of it and you're like, oh, it's getting crazy. 5 minutes go by and you could just see a sea of people stand up and just walk their way over. And what started as 10 people turned to 65, 70 people really fast. And as soon as halftime hit, they all were like, yeah, no, it's too cold. Put their shirts back on and decided to go back to their regular seats. A lot of them actually just left the stadium in general.
Don't blame them.
But it was It was definitely the highlight of the game, potentially the highlight of the season. Or if you're an Indiana football fan, it was bonkers. It was funny. It was definitely needed because we were getting destroyed at that time.
Yeah, getting punked by Rutgers. Look, so as we wrap up the social media part, just make sure that you follow us over at Indiana HQ on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. That's who we are across all those social media platforms, except for Instagram. Because Matt, what are we on Instagram?
Indiana.HQ.
That's right. For some reason, we had to go with Indiana.HQ on Instagram. Jevin gave us bird's eye pictures of the shirtless Section 19 crew from Memorial Stadium. So, for more hard-hitting, in-depth content like that, make sure you follow us over at Indiana HQ.
It's probably going to happen again. Like, I would not be surprised if it turns into a regular thing at Memorial Stadium now. Like, we were all talking about it in the press room. We were like, this is going to be something that happens next week against Minnesota. It's going to.
Yeah.
Why not?
Might as well.
Might as well. So when I look at the St. John's game, we've talked up St. John's quite a bit, and we hope that's what IU's coaching staff is doing. We hope IU's coaching staff is making St. John's sound like, the dream team, because this is a big game for both teams. This is a massive matchup that can really serve as a big resume booster for IU and for St. John's. But one major concern I see for St. John's is their inability to protect the basketball. In fact, in their first game against Mississippi Valley State, a game where St. John's won by 58 points, they still turned it over 20 times in that contest. And then in game 2 against St. Peter's, a bit more of a respectable opponent, St. John's still gave the ball away 15 times. So they play fast. They like to move the ball. They're very confident in the way they play. But if Indiana is going to win this game, they have to win the turnover battle. Indiana did a great job against Eastern Michigan of protecting the basketball. Indiana did a little bit of a worse job against Northern Illinois, but obviously you saw so much more offensive upside. I will say it, hard line, no doubt about it. Indiana will not win this game if they lose the turnover battle. So make sure you keep an eye on that stat over the course of the 40 minutes or more on Wednesday night as we head into this one. Guys, as we look at St. John's, what I want to do is basically ask you this. I mean, Indiana has reached their first checkpoint, 2-0, as we all expected. But Matt, as you kind of zoom out and you look full season focus. How big is this game on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being a must win, 1 being it is what it is, no big deal, just another game on the schedule? Where do you put this in the 2021-22 basketball season context?
It's a tough question. I think it's like a 5.
Yeah.
Because I think it's an important game. It's a resume builder. So I think St. John's will have a good season in the Big East. So if you can have a home win against a tournament team come tournament time, especially if, let's say we struggle with some stuff in Big Ten play, it could be the difference between a better seed and a worse seed come that time. But if you lose this game, it's Mike Woodson's 3rd game as head coach. It's first major conference opponent at home, and it's a good conference opponent with a really good player.
Yeah. So couple really good players. I mean, Champagny gets the headlines. Pasha Alexander is a dynamite point guard.
Yeah. But Julian Champagny is like, look, let's be honest, he's an All-American. So I would not be surprised if we lost this game, and it wouldn't be the end of the world. So that's why I'm putting it at a 5. I'd be disappointed, but the season's not. We're not going to have to ship the season like IU football yet. So
too soon. Jevin, from your standpoint, I'm going to ask you the same question. I know you've watched both games in person this year. I know you watched every game last season. As you look at this St. John's matchup Wednesday night, I know Hoosier fans are pumped up about it. They're ready to go. I know Assembly Hall is going to be rocking. Scale of 1 to 10, as you look at it in the 2021-22 season context, how important is this game?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say 6. Like Matt said, this is a resume builder win at the end of the day, and there's no more important game than your next game. So I do believe that this is an important game when looking at the months long that this basketball season is. It's just kind of hard to give it such a high number when it is the 3rd game of the year. I think if this game were to happen, in January, I know it wouldn't happen, obviously, with conference play and all that and those kinds of things, we would maybe give it a little bit higher of a ranking. But it's definitely not a game that you can just look at and be like, okay, if we lose, we lose, because it's more important than that, for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to tick it up just one more notch. I'm going to say it's a 7, only because Indiana doesn't have many big non-conference opportunities this year. You're not in a Maui Invitational or Atlantis type tournament. Even the Big East ACC matchup is against the Syracuse team that's not ranked. Notre Dame, your Banker's Life, your blanking on the Crossroads Classic. Your Crossroads Classic opponent is not ranked right now. Having a home loss to an unranked team could portend to some bad things. It's Assembly Hall too. 17,000 people, going to be crazy. I know Mike Woodson wants to protect home court. You looked really great on Friday night in Bloomington. Let's keep it rolling. This is a great opportunity to scalp, to bag a big non-conference win against a St. John's team that I think will make the NCAA tournament. So, you get that non-conference resume booster at home, and you're in a good situation. Real quick, I did want to mention in the Big East preseason polls, not only did St. John's come 4th, but Julian Champagny did make that preseason 1st team, and Pasha Alexander made the preseason All Big East 2nd team. So you can see how both guys are key players, not only in the program that they're in, but they've been recognized as major impactful players in the Big East Conference. By the way, the Big East preseason freshman of the year was former Indiana target, Aminu Muhammad from Georgetown.
Yep.
So he was the Big East preseason freshman of the year. We'll see how all of that plays out. All right, guys, last up for this podcast episode, let's get a prediction from both of you. Indiana, 6.5 point favorites. The over-under is 148.5. Jevin, I'm going to start with you. Who wins and by what score?
The under is going to hit. IU wins by 4, and it's going to be 67 to 63. Yeah. That checks out. That math checks out, right? Yeah.
It does. It does. I did want to say, Matt, you're going to get a little bit more information here. The KenPom machine has Indiana winning this game by 4 points, a 76 to 72 final.
I mean, come on. I mean, come on.
Gives Indiana 66% chance of winning. Based on that or not based on that, who do you think wins this game and by what score?
I think Vegas and Ken Palm is wrong. We're going to win by 3. And we're going to win on the last second shot. Which would be great.
From who?
From who?
Yeah, just go all in on it.
Go all in. All right. The game-winning shot is hit by Xavier Johnson. 3-pointer. 3-pointer.
Wow.
Win the game. Xavier
Oh my
Johnson.
gosh, assembly would be nuts.
Nuts. It would go insane. 70-67.
Give me a time too, like 11:08 p.m. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Assisted by who?
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So you've got Indiana coming up by 3. By the way, I see Matt and Jay's comment in the YouTube live chat. He says Purdue is better than IU, which probably works for football and men's basketball. So
Yeah.
that does not work for women's basketball. So
That's true.
Terry Morin's crew can hold that proudly, probably hold that accomplishment proudly. By the way, Indiana is firmly in control in their women's basketball game tonight against Norfolk State.
Should be.
I've got St. John's winning this game. I think Indiana is still a developing team. Indiana's just not quite as much of a finished product as St. John's is. And when I look at the 2 star guards, the 2 star players that St. John's has, I think they're going to give Indiana a lot of problems. So while I think Indiana rides the crowd to a good start, I think Julian Champagny and Pasha Alexander are going to give Indiana a lot to worry about. And I think it'll be a valuable game that Indiana looks back on in January and February and says, wow, remember what Julian Champagny did to us? Remember what Pasha Alexander did to us? Now let's adjust to it. And let's turn 1 loss into 2 or 3 more wins in Big Ten play. But I've got St. John's coming out on top. I think the under is going to hit 2. I've got it at 68-63 St. John's. I think it's going to be a defensive game. It's going to be a struggle. And Indiana now will have a loss on their ledger going into a softer portion of their schedule. Matt, as we wrap up tonight, any final thoughts here? Indiana's got a big game coming up on Wednesday night. Gabe Cupps committed to the Hoosiers. 2023 point guard in that 3-4 star fringe area. Cupps out of Ohio. We talked about IU men's basketball, 2-0 start. Anything on your mind as we wind down tonight?
Yeah, the Purdue fan in our chat. Let's not judge Purdue. I know they're beating Wright State, which apparently if you beat Wright State, you win a national championship. But I just looked up the stat line for the Wright State game. Look, I know they're up 40, right? But Wright State has attempted 21 3-pointers and only made 4 of them. So let's be honest, that not every team is going to shoot 10% from 3 against you. So let's chill out on Purdue being better than IU. I think they're good. I'm very excited to watch them play. What do they play this weekend? They play UNC this weekend.
Yep. They're in the PK 85, the Phil Knight tournament out in Oregon. Yeah. So
I'm very excited to see them play a up and coming UNC team with a new head coach this weekend. And we can know more about them then, just like we know more about IU tomorrow. But right now, you can't say anybody's better than anybody if they haven't played nobody. And Purdue hasn't played anybody yet. So let's chill out on the Purdue's better than IU stuff. Just for now.
I think it was a football comment, but I couldn't 100% tell, whatever the case may be.
I mean, that's if you're talking about football, then that you're
it is what it is.
That's
not important.
Yeah.
Jevin, how about you? Your final thoughts here as we wind down mid-November. College basketball season is getting hot.
Hey, to say Purdue hasn't played anybody, they did play Indiana State. Okay, stop messing with my hometown college.
Larry Bird.
No, I know. But just one last thing on the St. John's game. I think this is the game that we're gonna look at to see how good of a coach Mike Woodson really is in his pregame preparation and his in-game decision making. Who he subs in, who he subs out. I think we're gonna going to really see how good of a coach he is this game. I'm excited. I'm excited that I'm going to be able to be there. I'm excited to see hopefully an entire packed stadium just get loud from start to finish. And hopefully we get a good product on the court. We got to give another last shout out to the women's team. They're doing great things, and they're going to continue to do great things the rest of this year. It's just I feel like I say this every time we wind down one of these episodes, but it's just exciting again.
Yeah.
Like we're getting back into a sport that isn't as that letting us down that like football is.
No, can't say the F word on here.
Violent, terrible sport that is football. I mean, honestly, why do we even
dear.
play it anymore?
Oh,
I mean,
gosh.
So it's just it's ramping that excitement back up, and hopefully, after tomorrow we have even more reasons to be excited.
Yeah, I mean, if Indiana comes out of tomorrow's game 3-0, full speed ahead, because here are my 2 cents. The Big Ten, the narrative coming out of conference play last year was that the Big Ten is this amazing basketball conference, and then in the NCAA tournament, things went south. And then you look at the first 10 days, first 2 weeks, no, 1 week, the first 1 week of college basketball play right now. And it's not looking great. Ohio State stumbling, needed a buzzer beater. Wisconsin lost to Providence at home. Al Durham, by the way, old friend, hit a big shot down the stretch in that game for Providence.
Finally, one of the Colts.
Illinois choked a big lead. Yeah, Al Durham now has a Cole Center victory. We'll see if Indiana can get one later this year. Illinois blew a big lead at Marquette. Rutgers does not look good. Michigan State lost to Kansas, understandable, but didn't really give Spartan fans too much to be fired up about. Maryland struggled in their first couple of games. Rutgers is in a struggle right now. Nebraska's down at home to Creighton right now down the stretch. If Indiana can put things together, there might be a really good finish in store for this program, and all the struggles and all the frustrations and all the difficulties that somebody like Race Thompson has gone through for 4 years.
Yeah.
Could have a pretty massive reward at the end of all of this. So if Indiana stays locked in, continues to get better, play together, find a way to win some games here, listen to their coaching staff, good things could very well be in store for this program, because wow, the Big Ten by and large looks shaky. That about wraps it up for a 226 show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. Thank you to our live audience. You're all beautiful people. To hear more fantastic episodes like the one you heard today, be sure to follow us at Indiana HQ or at the Hoosier Sound to make sure you don't miss any in the future. You can also go to our website, indianahq.com, to find it all in one place. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we will see you next time.